Hello, and welcome to the ECR Retail Loss, Sell More and Lose Less podcast series. My name is Colin Peacock. I work with a community of experts and academics who are keen to share their latest research findings and best practices. And every week or two in this series, I'll be joined by one of those experts and academics to discuss some of the very latest insights from our meetings and discussions and research on best practices. Video analytics have been the next hottest thing for at least 15 years. In this episode, I'm joined by Professor Beck, and we discuss the latest findings from our survey of retailers looking at the use of video analytics in retail. How are you?
Very well, Colin. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Well, look, we had our video analytics benchmark survey results shared by your good self last week. Again, lots of interest in this topic, video analytics. I think we've been talking about video analytics for at least 15 years. You know, heat maps and, perimeter controls, and video analytics is going to control your store. You know, we were told 15 years ago, I think just after we were told that RFID was going to be bigger than the internet or bigger than the computer or something. So it's had quite a lot of publicity, the whole world of video analytics. And so this survey that you completed, got responses from 70 odd retailers, I think, and how they were using or looking to use video analytics. And, the report will be published, in a few weeks or so. But what were your sort of high level takeaways from the responses to the survey, the activity, I guess, that we are evidencing in this sort of admittedly small sample of retailers that's not representative, but a sort of a dip into the problem or the retail universe.
Yeah, we had responses from 70 retailers, so a reasonable sample, but not quite as many as last time. But again, we were able to split them between grocers versus non-grocers. That was a good split between them. And of course, video analytics and is a very hot topic at the moment, isn't it? I mean, people are talking a lot about AI and ML and all this stuff. Everything will be solved by the use of artificial intelligence, apparently. And video analytics overlaps with that in some ways. They're similar, but they're not the same. And so, this survey was just really interested in trying to understand around the entire retail estate how and to what extent retailers are using a wide range of video analytics. We asked them to comment on 47 different types of analytic, covering 6 different places around from the the distribution center through to the front of the store, in the store, checkouts, and the back of the store, and so on. So we got a real flavour of the extent to which people are currently using these analytics and those that are planning or trialing them in the near future. So some intention as to what's going to happen with these. And perhaps not surprisingly, when we look at this, and as you say, people will have access to this in a new report. Certainly in terms of the world of grocery, then the checkout is still very dominant in terms of the space where most are trying out a range of video analytics, particularly related to their self-checkout, of course, which is how can you try and identify non-scanning, mis-scanning and walk away, and so on. So that was a perhaps not unexpected in terms of seeing that. And then for the non-grocers, it was much more their use around within their sort of distribution centres, actually, and the surroundings around it. So perimeter control, unauthorised doors being open. So it's much more about the fabric of their stores rather than within it around self-checkout. So that was the sort of the in terms of what's being used, and it was mirrored really as well in terms of what people are planning as well and trialing out. And there we saw, even in non-grocery, people beginning to look particularly at self-checkout, but also interestingly in aisle use of video analytics. So there's this growing trend, I think, for people to be interested in seeing whether they can use the analytic to identify suspicious behaviour in the aisle and then bring that to the attention of members of staff who can perhaps go and intervene in terms of offering lots of customer service to try and put people off.
Well, you and I have both. We went to London, didn't we, to the Amazon Go store, the Tesco store, put Easter eggs, more little Easter eggs in our pockets and walked out and still got charged for them. So I guess there must be some trickle down technology that might work, as you say, for those in aisle. What I thought was also quite interesting, there was a couple of examples, additional use cases perhaps, that weren't in the 47 around people and maybe the more progressive use of people counting. I thought we had some good examples there, but also we had some examples of how they were looking at the SCO area to understand, what the SCO hosts and whether the SCO hosts were there or not, which I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, traditionally these sorts of analytics have been very security focused, haven't they? It's been predominantly around trying to deal with safety and security issues. But increasingly, I think we're seeing the use of analytics for non-security. How can the retail organisation benefit from the information that these things can deliver around people, like people counting, like observing when queues may be getting too long, and you can then begin to get stuff into those spaces. So I think we're seeing that broadening out. It's still predominantly around safety and security. There's no question about that. But I think that a number of retailers are now thinking about how this data, once you've put the network in, once you've invested in the equipment, it's then just a question of saying, to what extent can we use this for a range of purposes? And I think what struck me listening to the responses from those on the call was, that the technology is improving. The quality is improving, and because one of the challenges we found with this is, that the ability for the analytic to work effectively is really compromised when it's put in quite complicated spaces and has to do really quite complicated things. So, if you think about it in terms of protecting a building, you either want to know whether somebody's there or not. It's quite a binary bit of an analytic you want it to do, and they're very good at doing that. But when you bring it into the aisle and you start saying to the system, please tell me when somebody's been a shoplifter, that's very complicated. There's lots of things that go on in the aisle. Often shoppers will look like shoplifters, particularly if you're offering something like mobile SCO, for instance, which can make it look like people are stealing things. And so I think what we're seeing is a maturing of the quality of the technology now, where it's able to be tasked to do more complicated things in more complicated environments. And I think that's going to be the big change moving forward, and hence why we're seeing people beginning to use it quite effectively in the aisle. Is it's now beginning to get better at doing the things you want it to do, because if it doesn't, then it can just end up as a real distraction, can't it? You spend more time trying to make it work than actually benefiting from what it's doing.
Yeah.
And we heard that in some of our earlier research, where people, because it's so complicated to get it to work well, you spend an inordinate amount of time just trying to get the damn thing to work. And so I think what we're seeing moving forward from this survey is the ability of the technology now to be tasked to do more complicated things in more complicated spaces, and seeing some benefits from that.
I think we also heard as well, just again, a loss prevention and security mindset. If you're the leader of video, how you need to change your mindset and how you need to change and think about how your video and your security cameras can actually serve a different purpose. And that sort of felt like to me that was a real sort of learning for some of the people who are working in the sort of loss prevention space, to turn their minds, well, what if I was a consumer market research person? How would I be able to, and how do I think about presenting my service and my camera technology to those people? So that was interesting. We're going to have a session on that, the whole piece around, how to think about changing your mindset as a loss prevention leader and security leader in July, actually. Yeah. So one of the speakers has agreed to come along and speak to it. But thank you, Adrian. We'll look forward to the reports and talking about our favourite subject of video analytics in the future. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Colin. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to all the ECR retail loss community for the sharing of their knowledge, their research and latest learnings that ensure that we become truly a global platform for learning. My name is Colin Peacock. This is the Sell More and Lose Less podcast, and if you liked it, please subscribe so you automatically get all future episodes. And also, if you think your colleagues and friends might also like it, please ask them to follow ECR Retail Loss on LinkedIn and tune in to our next podcasts. If you didn't like it, then let us know and we'll try and fix it. Either way, see you next time. Thank you again.